At 88 years old, Jack Nicholson has opened up about the 6 actors he hated working with the most during his long career in Hollywood. Jack Nicholson was born on April 22, 1937, in a small town called Neptune City in New Jersey. His full birth name was John Joseph Nicholson. Jack's childhood was really unusual and kind of sad. He grew up thinking his grandmother was his mom. He also thought his real mother, June Nicholson, was actually his older sister. Can you imagine finding out your whole family wasn't who you thought they were? Jack didn't learn the truth about his real family until he was already a grown-up in 1974. A reporter from Time magazine told him the shocking news. This mystery about his parents affected him deeply inside. It made him feel complicated emotions that later helped him act in really powerful and emotional ways in his movies. Growing up without knowing who his real parents were gave Jack a special kind of toughness and depth. This became one of the things that made him so special and interesting to watch on screen. Jack's path to becoming a famous movie star didn't happen quickly or easily. After he moved to California to chase his dreams, he started working at a place called the MGM Animation Department. There, he wrote stories and drew sketches for a cartoon company called Hanna-Barbera. You might know them. They made cartoons like the Flintstones and Scooby-Doo. But while working there, Jack realized that what he really wanted to do was act in movies. Not just draw cartoons, he worked really hard to learn how to act properly, and took small parts in TV shows and movies during the 1950s and 1960s. Most people didn't notice these early roles. He often appeared in cheap, low-budget movies made by a director named Roger Corman. Some of these films were called The Crybaby Killer, made in 1958, and The Raven, made in 1963. Even though hardly anyone watched these movies back then, they were super important for Jack. They gave him lots of practice and experience. They also taught him to be brave and fearless when it came to acting and trying new things on camera. Jack's big breakthrough moment finally came in 1969 with a movie called Easy Rider. In this film, he played a character named George Hanson, who was a lawyer with a drinking problem. His performance was so good that he got nominated for his very first Academy Award. That's the fancy name for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. This was the role that showed everyone his special charm and style. He mixed together rebellion, humor, wit, and emotional vulnerability in a way that grabbed everyone's attention. After this movie, people all over the country started to notice Jack Nicholson. The 1970s was when Jack really became one of the greatest actors in movie history. This decade marked the beginning of what people call his golden era. In 1970, he starred in a movie called 5 Easy Pieces. This role showed that he was amazing at playing sad, confused men who were struggling to figure out who they were and felt very alone in the world. Then in 1973, he was in The Last Detail, where he showed his raw power and intensity mixed with humor and comedy. After that came his legendary and unforgettable performance as a private detective named Jake. It is in the movie Chinatown in 1974. This role is still considered one of the best performances in the entire history of movies. But his most famous role from this time was playing Randall McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1975. This performance won him his very first Academy Award for Best Actor, the top prize. Jack brought so much spirit, rebellion, and humanity to that character. He transformed the film into a timeless masterpiece that people still love and talk about today. Even decades later, throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Jack kept proving he could play all different kinds of characters. He wasn't just a star from one era. He could change and adapt to new times. He showed everyone that he was way more than just a product of the new Hollywood movement from the 1970s. One of his scariest and most famous roles was playing Jack Torrance in Stanley Kubrick's horror movie The Shining in 1980. His performance was absolutely chilling and terrifying. The line, "Here's Johnny," that he says in that movie became super famous. People still quote it all the time today, and it remains one of the most unforgettable moments in film history. Later, in 1989, he played the Joker in Tim Burton's Batman movie. He brought amazing theatrical brilliance and scariness to this comic book villain. He commanded the screen with his magnetic energy and personality, making everyone unable to look away from him. In the 1990s, Jack showed his range once again by giving emotionally deep and layered performances. He was in A Few Good Men in 1992, where he had another famous line, "You can't handle the truth." Then he starred in As Good as It Gets in 1997, and this performance won him his third Oscar. This proved he was still at the top of his game. After starring in films like Mars Attacks, TTT, and a few other projects, Jack delivered a blockbuster performance in the movie As Good as It Gets in 1997. He starred alongside actress Helen Hunt, and their chemistry was wonderful. 2 years after the year 2000 began, he starred in a movie called About Schmidt, which showed a quieter, more thoughtful side of his acting. He followed that up with Anger Management, a comedy film. In 2006, Jack played the role of a crazy, dangerous gang boss in the movie The Departed. This crime thriller also starred Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio. His portrayal of the villain Frank Costello was so good that it earned him a Golden Globe nomination. The following year, in 2007, he starred in The Bucket List, a heartwarming film about two older men going on adventures together. By the early 2000s, Jack started having some health problems. He also just wanted more peace and quiet in his life. These things led him to quietly step away from acting. His final film appearance was in a movie called How Do You Know? In 2010, where he acted opposite Reese Witherspoon. Though he has mostly stayed out of the public eye and away from cameras in recent years, his legacy and impact continue to dominate and influence modern cinema. With 12 Academy Award nominations throughout his career, Jack has more nominations than any other male actor in the entire history of the Oscars. His career is proof of his genius and how long he stayed great. People remember him not only for his unmatched talent, but also for his fearless approach to telling stories. He had an amazing ability to become complex, difficult characters. He also refused to follow Hollywood's normal rules and expectations. He always did things his own way. Jack Nicholson's marriage to an actress named Sandra Knight is one of the lesser-known, but really important chapters in his long and complicated life story. The two met in the late 1950s during the early years of Jack's acting career. Both of them were young and eager to make their mark and become successful in Hollywood. Sandra Knight was already getting some attention as an actress. She was known for her roles in low-budget horror movies and drama films. Meanwhile, Jack was still struggling to find his footing and get noticed in an industry that often overlooked actors who were unconventional and different. Their shared love of art and their mutual attraction quickly drew them together. Their romance blossomed both on and off the movie screen. They got married in 1962, which was a time when Jack was still very far from the fame that would later define his entire life. The couple settled into a modest, simple life together. They often moved between Los Angeles and various filming locations as they worked on different projects. This reflected the unpredictable and uncertain nature of show business. Sandra, who had a calm and thoughtful personality, gave Jack stability during a period when he was still learning, though discipline and toughness needed to survive. Hollywood's competitive landscape and environment, their marriage happened at the same time that Jack was working as a writer and actor for Roger Corman's independent film productions. While these projects didn't make him a star yet, they provided crucial and valuable experience that would shape his artistic voice and style. In 1963, Jack and Sandra welcomed their only child together, a daughter named Jennifer Nicholson. Jennifer would later grow up to become a fashion designer. She also made occasional appearances in the entertainment world. Jack's relationship with his daughter has been one of lasting affection and respect. even as his fame and lifestyle later became much more intense and complicated. For a brief time, being a father and having family life gave Jack a sense of being grounded and stable. Friends of the couple remembered that Jack, despite his growing restlessness and artistic hunger, was a devoted and caring father during those early years. He tried his best to balance his creative pursuits with domestic life and taking care of his family. However, as Jack's career began to grow and evolve, so did his personal life. The marriage between Jack and Sandra gradually grew strained and difficult. This reflected not only the pressures and stress of the entertainment industry, but also Jack's increasingly unconventional and different way of looking at the world. Sandra, who was more traditional in her temperament and personality, found it difficult to adjust to Jack's expanding social circles. She struggled with his bohemian lifestyle and his relentless drive to pursue artistic freedom at all costs. Their personalities, while initially complementary and working well together, became divergent and different as Jack's career ambitions intensified and grew stronger. The tension between family life and creative passion proved too great and too much to handle. By 1968, after 6 years of marriage, the couple divorced and went their separate ways. In later interviews over the years, both Jack and Sandra would speak of their time together with mutual respect. They acknowledged that while their union did not last forever, it had been an important and solid foundation for both of them. Sandra often described Jack as a deeply intelligent and passionate man who was already showing signs of the magnetic intensity that would later define his screen persona and presence. Jack, for his part, has expressed gratitude and thankfulness for the early support and stability she provided when his career was uncertain and unclear. Their separation, though amicable and friendly, marked the beginning of a new phase in Jack's life. This new chapter was characterized by greater freedom, a succession of many romantic relationships, and the full emergence of his identity as one of Hollywood's most mysterious and enigmatic leading men. Now, at the remarkable age of 88, Jack Nicholson, Hollywood's most iconic rebel and one of cinema's most unpredictable forces, has lived long enough to say exactly what he thinks. He doesn't have any fear of consequences or restraint anymore. Known for his biting wit, sardonic grin, and volcanic intensity on screen, Jack has never been one to hide his opinions or keep his thoughts to himself. Recently, in a surprisingly candid and honest conversation with a close friend that later made its way through industry circles and Hollywood gossip networks, Jack allegedly spoke openly about the 6 actors he hated working with the most throughout his career. The comments, while sharp and unfiltered, offer a fascinating glimpse into the mind of a man who has seen every side of Hollywood. He's experienced everything from the golden age of method acting to the modern era of green screens and corporate studios that care more about money than art. "I'm too old to pretend," Jack reportedly said with a half-smile on his face. "I've had the time of my life in this business. But there were some people who made it absolute hell." The first name Jack reportedly mentioned was Val Kilmer, with whom he had crossed paths and worked during the 1990s. "Val was talented, no question about that," Jack said, "but he thought every single set revolved around him, and only him. It's tough and exhausting to work with someone who forgets that filmmaking is a team effort, not a one-man show." Jack admired Kilmer's craft and skill as an actor, but he found his perfectionism and mood swings absolutely exhausting and draining. Their dynamic and relationship, he said, represented the clashing of big egos that so often defined Hollywood's golden personalities and big stars. He was trying to prove something every single minute of every day, Jack added. That kind of intense energy wears you down and makes you tired. Another actor Jack had strong and harsh words for was Shia LaBeouf, who represents a younger generation of Hollywood that Jack has never quite embraced or understood. Shia's got raw energy and passion, but he's reckless and out of control, Jack reportedly said. He mistakes chaos for creativity. Jack, who spent decades carefully perfecting the balance between spontaneity and control, saw in LaBouffe a reflection of what he described as Hollywood's decline into self-indulgence and narcissism. For Jack, discipline was everything, and the key to great acting. "You can be wild and crazy," he said, "but you've got to know when to pull back and show restraint. That's the difference between a real performance and just a public meltdown that embarrasses everyone." The third actor on Jack's list was Tommy Lee Jones, a man equally known for his intensity and his gruff, rough demeanor and personality. "Tommy's one of the smartest guys you'll ever meet in your entire life," Jack said. "But he's got absolutely no patience for anyone else's method or approach to acting." On set, Jack recalled, Jones's curt attitude and dismissive tone created constant tension and discomfort. "He doesn't talk like a normal person. He just growls at people. I like a little electricity and energy on set, but not outright hostility and meanness. Tommy takes himself way too seriously, and that's dangerous and problematic in a business that's already full of massive egos." Jack also mentioned Russell Crowe, another powerhouse actor with a reputation for fiery outbursts and explosions of temper. "Russell's got the heart of a gladiator," Jack said with a smirk and slight smile. "But he fights way too many battles that don't need fighting at all." Jack respected Crowe's talent and ability, but was very critical of his off-screen temperament and behavior. "He's absolutely brilliant when the camera's rolling and filming," Jack explained. "But between takes, it's like walking through a minefield full of hidden explosives. You never know when he'll explode and blow up at someone." Jack, who has seen countless stars rise to fame and fall from grace over the decades, believes that such volatility and instability often burns out greatness too soon. Talent can't survive if you're constantly fighting everyone around you. One surprising name on Jack's list was Jim Carrey, an actor from a completely different world of performance entirely. "Jim's a genius in his own way and style," Jack admitted honestly. "But he doesn't know when to stop or turn it off. Comedy needs rhythm and timing. He just throws everything at the wall and hopes something sticks." Jack found Carrey's constant improvisation chaotic, distracting, and hard to work with. "He's like a cartoon character that escaped from the screen and came to life," Jack said. "It's funny and entertaining for a minute, but then you start to wonder if he even remembers there's a script that we're supposed to be following." They're differing and opposite styles. Carrey's hyperactive antics and Jack's brooding precision and control made collaboration difficult and sometimes frustrating. Finally, Jack revealed a name that shocked even his closest friends: Dustin Hoffman. The two actors, both products of the 1970s New Hollywood era, were often compared to each other by critics and fans. But Jack made it crystal clear that he never enjoyed Hoffman's company or working with him. "Dustin's always been too wrapped up in the process and the technical details," Jack said bluntly. "He'll rehearse the life out of a scene until it's dead and lifeless. Me, I like to catch the lightning and magic in the moment. Once it's gone forever. Dustin wants to bottle it, label it, put it in a jar, and analyze it under a microscope." Jack respected Hoffman's brilliance and incredible skill, but found his approach mechanical, rigid, and soulless. "He's one of the greats, no doubt about that," Jack continued. "But we're wired differently and think in opposite ways. He needs control and structure. I need freedom and spontaneity. That's like oil and water. They just don't mix." As the conversation wrapped up and came to an end, Jack reflected on his long, storied career and the many lessons he learned about collaboration and working with others over the years. "You don't have to love everyone you work with," he said wisely, "but you should at least respect the craft and the art of what we do." Despite his sharp and cutting words, there was no lingering bitterness or anger in his tone, just the unvarnished truth of a man who has seen it all and lived through everything. I've had my feuds and conflicts, sure, Jack concluded. But I've also shared scenes with absolute legends and icons. You learn more from the ones who challenge you and push your buttons, even if you hate them for it at the time. Now, as he enjoys his quiet retirement in Los Angeles, rarely making public appearances or attending Hollywood events, Jack Nicholson remains unapologetically himself. Mischievous, honest, brutally frank, and forever unpredictable. His list of hated co-stars may sound harsh and mean to some people, but it ultimately reflects a man whose standards were shaped and formed by a lifetime of artistic passion and dedication to his craft. You can call it hate if you want, Jack said with his signature grin and twinkle in his eye. I call it honesty and telling the truth. And at 88 years old, I've earned the right to be honest and say what I really think. At 88, Jack has nothing left to prove to anyone. He's not worried about burning bridges or upsetting Hollywood egos and sensibilities. In a world that's obsessed with diplomacy, political correctness, and fake niceness, Jack remains unapologetically raw, real, and authentic, just as he's always been throughout his entire life and career. You reach a point in life, he said thoughtfully, where you stop pretending to like people who make the work miserable and unbearable. I've reached that point, and honestly, I'm loving it and enjoying every minute of my freedom.